Hello and welcome back to LDC FM. You're tuning into our podcast featuring interviews with our community of independent designers and industry guests. We'll be discussing topics of sustainability, conscious design, the future of fashion, tech, and innovation. This podcast has been recorded alongside an Instagram Live, so apologies for any technical issues prior to tuning in. Thank you for listening.
I'm joined here with Tamsin Lejeune, who is the founder and CEO of Common Objective. And this is going to be a really exciting discussion. What I want to know, or what I want to talk about, is Common Objective. I want to go into the brand story, to how you started, what is important to you. We're going to touch on sustainability, ethics, the environment, the current situation, everything. So please, I encourage you all, post your questions, comments, anything for Tamsin or myself, and let's make this a really interesting discussion, and let's talk everything sustainability, ethics, common objective, all of that. So let's start. Tamsin, tell us about yourself, your background, and starting Common Objective.
Yeah, sure. So it all began quite a while ago, back in 2005 when I founded the Ethical Fashion Forum. So we, a group of individuals who are finding it very difficult to source and produce in a sustainable way, got together felt we could achieve more through collaboration.
I feel like for a lot of people out there, I know for LDC we have a lot of brands. I'm sure Common Objective, it's a lot of designers as well. So I think this common, or what you were saying about power of collaboration, and also about looking for sustainable alternatives in terms of manufacture and in terms of materials. I think that's a common theme that a lot of our designers, definitely, it's a challenge, and it still is. I can't imagine what it must have been like, back in 2005 though.
Yeah, well, it was quite a different world, right? We're sorted.
Yeah.
Quite a different world then. I remember quite vividly the first time I went to London Fashion Week. So before I mean, what prompted me to found the Ethical Fashion Forum was that I had my own brand called Just, producing fair trade in Bangladesh.
Amazing.
And it was so difficult to find suppliers. I ended up joining a conference for the World Fair Trade Organization and meeting a supplier in Bangladesh. But, if it hadn't been for that, it would be very difficult to find those. And I was finding it pretty tough to produce. But as part of my research into producing that brand, I went to London Fashion Week and hung around. I pretended I was a buyer, went to a few shows. And this was before Aesthetica. So this was probably 2003.
Yeah, wow.
And the kind of response I got to any discussion of this, there was, people looked me up and down, and as though I didn't really deserve to be there. And what a difference, in 10 years, it's 15 years, what a difference. Now, just this season, in the last season at London Fashion Week, there were only sustainable brands as part of the Positive Fashion Initiative. I could never have dreamed that would be the case.
That is interesting. Let's one thing that you said just really struck me, and I think this is interesting for a lot of people. So you said back in 2003 you went to Fashion Week, and a lot of people saw you, looked you up and down, and thought this is crazy. So what made you interested in sustainability and ethics? Why was it so important to you, especially back then? This was in the infancy in the industry, and it's so important that you have pushed forward with this. But how did that come about as a personal journey for you?
So, I grew up in Africa originally.
Okay.
And had the privilege of seeing how the other side of the world lives, I guess, the positive and the negative. And growing up in Africa let me see a different side of life. It was actually slow fashion at its essence, very sustainable approach to fashion. you would buy your fabrics at the local market, have something made by a local seamstress.
Mm-hmm.
But it also made me recognize the great potential for business done well.
Yeah.
How transformative it could be. And when I was 18, I spent time in Honduras and Guatemala working as a teacher, and saw the incredible range of artisanal work that was there, and yet that didn't make it to the high streets. That we have such homogenous range of options. And so I realized that there's something exciting here. We, as in the UK, thousands of creative designers emerging, graduating every year, who could offer opportunities for access to markets, and if there was just a means to connect them up.
Yeah, amazing. That is incredible. So going then from the Ethical Fashion Forum, how did you meet the people that you then you started the Ethical Fashion Forum as a collaboration as a collective with other people?
Yeah, so there were 20 founding members, including brands like Howie's, and we had a fair trade network in Bangladesh as one of our founding members. So we grew from there, created the Ethical Fashion Forum, which was a platform for information, a sourcing database, and a network, none of which spoke to each other. So the concept behind Common Objective was, how can we use tech to build on this seed that had been created and create a tool that will really help anybody anywhere to access markets, to build businesses that transform lives, and to create beautiful clothes.
Amazing. That's fantastic. And so, how really quickly, so you're crowdfunding, or you have been crowdfunding recently. How is that going? Because you launched in February, so just before everything kind of, the pandemic hit and just before everything happened. How has that been going, and what have you been crowdfunding to do with Common Objective?
Yeah, so just to give you some background on the transition. So in 2016, we created a for-profit company, Ethical Group, in order to be able to raise equity crowdfunding, and had some pretty great investors come in. We were very lucky. People like Roland Moray and senior people from Vivian Westwood, and Harold Tillman was one of our early investors, and then Amber Valletta was a big supporter. So very lucky right from the well, based on 10 years of working and building a network. And so it was a natural next step, I suppose. We with the initial funds, we built the platform and achieved a level of traction. We're now on 30,000 members in 150 countries.
Wow.
And the site sort of does what it does everything that we had set up the Ethical Fashion Forum to do, but it uses technology to solve the problems we face. So there's sort of two algorithms that govern the way Common Objective works. The first is the matching algorithm. So you a bit like a match.com, you specify what you need, and the site matches you with people, with buyers, with suppliers, with information. So that whole process of finding a supplier, our goal is to make that so much easier to be able to do it in so little time. Whether or not you're interested in sustainability, our goal was to create a site that would just make it easier to build a business wherever you are in the world in the fashion industry. And then the second algorithm is a weighting algorithm. So the more sustainable a business, the higher its search ranking on the site. So that means that if you're looking for a supplier, you don't have to be sustainable as a business to be part of Co. It's free to join as an individual, and then you can set up a business profile free of charge. But if you have no sustainability around your business credentials, you'll hardly be visible on the site, which is our intention, to try to turn sustainability from an opportunity. So with Co, with this round of funding, the natural next step was to offer, now that we'd proven the case for the site, we'd built the technology, we'd proven there was demand for it, was to open it up to our entire community, make it possible for anyone to be a shareholder we've got some brilliant shareholders already. I mentioned Rollmore and others, Plexus Cotton, Komodo Clothing, Thought Clothing, who've all been such an important part of our journey, not just as shareholders and investors, but also contributing to help us make this a tool that is really useful, because unless we're really useful, we're not going to achieve our goal. So yes, opening up means that anybody anywhere very easily can become a shareholder from £10 and be a part of our journey, get inside updates on how we operate, be a part of the community, take part in our events. We have and investing partner packages for businesses so that you can get your business promoted to a target audience through Co, as well as having shares.
Amazing. So what's next for Common Objective, or what are you, maybe instead of what's next, where are you now? So how are you seeing the current situation, the pandemic, affect what you're doing and small businesses? And maybe what advice would you have for businesses out there right now?
Yes, thank you. So a really unprecedented what's happening now. I think for us, so it was like all businesses, to start with, it was a shock, and we had to jump in and move fast and change everything and review all our strategy. Overall, I believe we can see a silver lining to this eventually. I think this is an opportunity, and increasingly we're hearing this from our community too, that this is an opportunity to really reset the way business operates. If anything, it has brought sustainability much more to the fore than it was before. And a McKinsey, that is an interesting McKinsey report that was just published last week, that I would encourage you to have a look at. McKinsey Sustainable Supply Chains for the Fashion Industry, which is research. They did a survey of sourcing professionals, and the vast majority are saying two things: sourcing is going to go online, and that things need to change, because this whole crisis has laid bare the vulnerabilities in the supply chain, and the impact has been utterly tragic for millions of people in supply chains as a result of the risk that they've had to hold. There's something really wrong with the way we operate, and I think that has become much more obvious. We're excited, I guess, at the potential that we can use the Cove platform and what we've built to support our businesses as we emerge from this, but also to try to reset the way the industry operates. That was always our intention. But if you look at how fast we've moved with COVID, how quickly we've made things happen that people thought were impossible, that people said were impossible. And if you draw a parallel between that and the climate movement, how slowly things have moved and how quickly they could move, I see this as an opportunity to address things that seem impossiable but aren't.
I think that's absolutely true, and that's such a good way to look at it, because it is a difficult time. We're all being challenged, but there is opportunity. So then, I think I like what you said, that this is an opportunity to reset. So how, as an industry, do we go about that? What is the first step, or what does this look like?
I think one thing that's really important is much closer relationships between buyers and suppliers. If you look at the origins, all the challenges in the industry, I think started to come about and worsened at the point at which supplier became so separated from place of design and production and the place of design and sale. And thousands of miles apart, with cultural barriers and the inability to build close relationships that were there before. When we 50 years ago, we didn't produce in this way. And so becoming partners between suppliers and buyers again, not just contractors, but partners in the business. The most forward-looking businesses that we've seen right from the very beginning, are those that make their suppliers owners in what they do. In the fair trade model, the most pioneering businesses have their suppliers benefit their shareholders in the business as a whole. It's a win-win. I mean, more and more we're seeing suppliers taking a lead from sustainability perspective and taking a lead from an innovation perspective. And business is better when you work in a collaborative way with the best people in the room. We've seen it with gender, we've seen it with race, and it's the same across the supply chain.
Yeah, I think, and we've just had a comment through that I think is so true. Somebody's just said, I think it's been really good for consumers also to learn more about their purchases and the brands that they're purchasing from. And I totally agree. In a way, I feel like this has been a bit of an equalizer. You know, we've seen all businesses have to react. And we've seen some who have done a good job and others not so well. And everything is very public, and customers are wanting to see behind the scenes. They're wanting to know what's going on, and it is laying a lot of these issues bare. I mean, what would be your thoughts on that? Do you feel like this is really good for customers as well? And would you encourage customers to maybe take a more active voice even in using this time, you know, to ask more questions?
It's an interesting one. If you look at previous recessions, there's been the immediate aftermath has generally been a free-for-all where people have consumed more and perhaps less responsibly. I think this is different to any other recession we've ever had before, because, as you say, it's given people the chance to step back from the way they have operated and to recognize all the other things in life that matter, to recognize the impact of consumption on the way they live, and to realize that perhaps they don't need quite so many clothes. But I also think that this is an opportunity to make the big changes, the things that we thought were impossible. And that for me is changing the rules. It's putting in place some rules as a global community, as a global business community, as to how we want to see business operate on a global scale. In the end, you know, we've tackled this as a business community because we haven't had access to the ability to move and change regulations quickly. So we've chosen to tackle to use the power and initiative of fashion professionals to operate within there, and business owners to operate with and change things from within business. And you can do that with consumers. You know, you can encourage consumers, work with consumers, increase engagement by consumers. But in the end, the thing that we all need is to change the rules. And that will change things so much more quickly than depending upon voluntary initiatives, either by businesses or individuals.
And is this something that are we seeing any idea of change maybe coming about? Are we seeing anything begin to come from this yet, or is it still too early to say?
What I'm seeing is more collaboration between organizations that drive change. And that's where I think we can build a strong coalition of organizations that drive change, and the leaders, the people who have clout and influence over international industry. That's the beginning of a coalition that could start.
That is really interesting. That is interesting. And is this something, you know, are we talking short term, or is this the beginning of a very long term plan or very long term thing? Because I feel in some ways we're seeing things happen very rapidly and very fast, especially the reaction and what's happening now. But there are other things that are going to take time. Where, in terms of changing these rules, do you think this is just going to ramp everything up? Is this a reason to move, like you said, you know, to make these changes faster?
I think with climate change, the challenge we face is that it never seems so immediate. So can we create, and yet it is, the threat from climate change is on a par with the threat of coronavirus. It just feels immediate. And so the question is, how can we bring that home to people so that they can recognize it is on a par, and that we can see the level of change we've seen around the world in response to coronavirus.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, let's okay, so we've talked about current, we've talked about Common Objective story, which is fantastic. Let's talk a little bit about what is your ultimate end goal with Common Objective? What would you love to see?
So I've always wanted the same thing. I've wanted to see sustainable business being an opportunity, being something that's sold. Why should it be costly, more difficult, more challenging to operate sustainably than the opposite? We need a level playing field. I'd like to see a global accounting system which was truly three-dimensional. Three-dimensional profit and loss, I think, could be a solution for us as to the challenges we face through capitalism. The challenge with capitalism is that it's single-dimensional. It's only commercial, and we are measured on a national and an international level as businesses. We're measured purely on the financial that we submit every year. If our financial reporting had to take into account social and environmental considerations and was truly three-dimensional, and those were the terms upon which we were required to operate as business, that would change everything. It is starting to, it's fairly blue sky, but it's starting to happen. Businesses voluntarily, leading businesses, are starting to measure up their environmental impact against the financial impact, and that would truly create, such that a small producer in Ethiopia would be able to have accounts that were on a par and a profit level that was could be more profitable from a social, environmental, and financial perspective. And perhaps is already, but that is not visible. It's not possible to compare that level. And through code, that's where I'd like to see the ultimate, us being able to land on code and see our dashboard, who was trending, which businesses were at the top this week in terms of social and environmental and financial, because in the end, if you need all three dimensions are absolutely essential for a business to continue to be sustainable. If you're a buyer and you want to find a great source of product, that product needs to sell as well as needing to safeguard the people and the environment behind it.
Absolutely. But I do feel like you are getting there. I do feel like, it is happening. And I see it every day in the brands that we work with. And yes, they are very, very small. But it does also start at the from the ground up as well. And if we can encourage these small independent designers to be building these sustainable and ethical practices right from the get-go, and we can also as consumers be putting pressure on these bigger companies, we are making strides. It's always hard, isn't it, to see, but I do feel like you are making such an impact just from what I've personally seen. And the dealings that I've had with designers, which is no small feat.
So I have the great privilege as part of the preparation for this to have a look at your site and choose my top 5 picks, and it made my day. I think it made my year.
I'm so glad.
The collection you've got on there, and I don't know whether it's partly because you've had more of a focus on the online components, but it's stunning. I've been watching this sector grow for 15 years, and I've been looking for the kind of level of competence that you've achieved through LDC for a long time. It's not easy to do, and it's a combination of things. I think it's the range of designers that you've got on there. The product quality is fantastic. It really stands out, and and that's a sign of the times. And then you've brought it together. So I'm encouraged by that. You know, if you any designers producing this level of quality product, we can compete. We can compete with the mainstream.
Exactly. And that's what I find so exciting. And it is so amazing to see. And just how agile these small brands are as well is fascinating. You know, I've had brands that started out with leather products wanting to find alternatives, but not wanting to go down a route of PU because it's, you know, again, it's a controversial route. Is it better? Is it not? But this is a byproduct, the longevity, all of this. And now being able to make that transition using Pinatex, mushroom leather, apple materials. And it's just so fantastic to see these brands so agile, so reactive, and so driven to have sustainability and ethics as a given in their businesses, not as a USP. And for me, that is, it's so great. You know, I mean, I have been, you know, about 5 years ago, it was, oh, my unique selling point is that I'm a sustainable business. And I thought, even back then, that can't surely be a USP. Surely it's a given. It should just be part of your business that you're doing, you know, as much as you can. And now seeing businesses just from the get-go incorporating and have such a conscious element is just fantastic.
You know, I think for the first time, it actually is becoming a USP. So something to check out if you already. World Fair Trade Organization recently launched a report just before COVID-19 on the success of fair trade enterprises. And it demonstrated that the resilience, the dedication, the commitment of the entrepreneurs and the suppliers to a fair trade model meant that those businesses lasted longer, enormously longer, and were more resilient and made more money than the equivalent, than a business that values and that mission behind it. Yeah,
no, definitely. And I agree, you know, all businesses should and should talk about that. But it's, I guess just for a while it was, we would meet designers who would start a business and say, my unique selling point is that I am a sustainable business. But it just felt like it needed to be everybody having that. You know, it felt like I should meet every brand and say, of course I'm sustainable. Of course I'm doing this, you know. But you know, we're getting closer. We're getting there. Cool. So I'm going to jump into another question. Amanda has very kindly written me lots, so I'm slowly making my way through. We won't say, we'll do one or two more questions, just conscious of time. I know you've taken up a lot of your evening. Let's end on a really nice, let's end with two. And I think these are great. I always like asking this one. What is like one of the best things or a memory that you maybe have throughout the journey of setting up CO that really made you proud, or that you just thought, yes, this is it. Yeah. This is why I did this.
So what inspires me every day is the businesses that join. When you join, if you aren't already a member of Common Objective, go commonobjective.co, you can join up in seconds. And I send a message to every single person who joins, and I commit to reading all the responses. And it's the best moment of my day. I get the most incredible responses from businesses all over the world joining, and every one is doing things. And just a few of them to check out if you're not already familiar with them. Outland Denim, who have these are individuals who've persevered over 5, 10, 20 years to get to a solution, and they don't give up. Really transformative for the women behind the Outland Denim brand. Bottle Top is another, started with starting with a challenge, you know, with a challenge and an opportunity. So street kids in Africa who have no options, and opportunities that there are discarded bottle tops. Okay, how can we turn that into a business? And they've done it so well. I mean, they now have a flagship store on Regent Street. Maya Miko is another one who was a winner of our awards last year. Yeah, and many of the brands on your site are the same. And I suppose just to go back to one story which keeps me going. It was a project we ran right at the very beginning of my journey back in 2005, and we had a budget of £2,500 to launch an international competition. The challenge was that there was a group of women in Ghana called Women in Progress, who were producing wonderful products for children that were selling well. Their women's wear wasn't selling. It was produced in a very traditional way, batik, bright colors. It didn't really meet the needs of a woman on the streets of London. Okay. So we got together. We started a design competition. Got together designers. Got together a buyer from Topshop. Ran a competition. They went out to Ghana. And the result of that was that the products sold out 3 years running, and the women's wages increased tenfold. You know, they were able to send their kids to school. It was utterly transformative. Wow. And that's the seeds of that really made it clear to me, if we could catalyze this sort of relationship all over the world, how much could it change on a individual ground? And that's what we're trying to do with Co. We share a common objective, building great business that changes lives and that doesn't trash the planet. And if we can leverage the power of our global community, now 30,000 strong, how much change we can achieve through making the right connections, giving people the tools they need to excel. The will is there, and the creativity and the excellence is there. We just need to facilitate it. And so that's what Co's about.
That is amazing. That really is amazing. And I've just seen a couple of people writing that is so motivational. So I think that's a definite end to inspire. And I think that is so true and so wonderful. And I don't think we're that far off.
No, I mean, this can happen every day. I mean, this is one of the wonderful things about running your own business and being entrepreneurial. It can feel quite disempowering otherwise, operating in society where you feel like you can't have a lot of impact on the rules, you can't have a lot of impact politically. You know, you can vote once a year. How can you really make a difference with what you do? And entrepreneurship allows you to do that, allows you to see an immediate change with every action you take. And we see that all the time, all around the world, which is why I guess I have hope in a new form of capitalism that uses all the great things about business and combines them with all the great things about humanity.
I think that's so true. And I can just see all the comments coming in that are so everyone, very empowered, which is so wonderful. So I think this is a fantastic end note. So thank you so much, Tamsin. It has been a very, very interesting, very fun evening. Thank you very much for joining me.
Welcome anybody who isn't already a member of Co to join. Please join part of our community. And with our crowdfund, it closes on the 22nd of May. So until then, you can become a shareholder and an owner in what we do for just £10. Be a part of shaping what we're trying to create and benefit from our growth, which is essentially what we would like to do. We would like our global network to benefit from everything that we are investing our time in.
Amazing. That's fantastic. So yes, please do. Anyone out there, go and sign up. Get on the newsletter. Submit your first message to Tamsin and she will read it.
I will read it. You can be sure.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much, Tamsin. It has been an absolute pleasure. You have inspired all of us. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I hope you enjoyed this evening's live with Tamsin. Please do check out Join Our Co. And if you're having a look for sustainable brands, do check out our website, loandesignclub.com. Just like the clothes I'm wearing and the designers Tamsin is talking about, we support independent, sustainable and ethical businesses. And right now more than ever, helping them get to market through our online e-commerce. We have a schedule of events, we have lives every day. And everything we do is about helping people buy less and buy better, buy from small independents that are making a true difference. So please head onto the site and check out some of our products and events. Thank you so much. Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you so much again for tuning in. Head to our website, lonedesignClub.com, and find more LDCFM podcasts, or discover more about our independent designers online.